Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sporting Max. Today, we are joined by Richmond Tigers legend, AFL legend, and sports media icon, Matthew Richardson. Welcome to the podcast, Richo. It's an honour to have you on. How you going?
Good, thanks, Max. And thanks for having me on. And you're looking very sharp, mate, in the shirt.
Thank you. It's greatly appreciated for you to put aside some of your time, come and have a chat. I'd like to start off by getting into sort of your childhood and what growing up was like for you in, I believe it was Devonport, Tasmania.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Devonport, Tasmania, which is, for those who don't know, and a lot of people probably don't, which is on the northwest coast of Tasmania, a little town, population of about 30,000 people, but a footy mad town. It really is AFL heartland down in that area of the northwest of Tasmania. So yeah, I grew up there, Max, in the early 80s, sort of when I was coming through primary school, long before the internet and all of this sort of stuff. So yeah, grew up in an Aussie rules area. Obviously in summer we played a lot of cricket, a little bit of basketball as well, but yeah, footy was always the thing for me.
What was your greatest skill as a junior?
Gee, that's a good question, Max. I think my marking has always been my strong point. If I look at my football career, I guess I always had long arms, which helps if you want to be a marking player. They always say when you put your arms out, your wingspan is your height, and my wingspan is a little bit taller than my height. So I think I always had that reach advantage, even as a junior. So even when I was out of position, maybe I was still able to take marks. So yeah, that was probably my strong point, mate.
Can you sort of guide me through your path to the AFL and I guess what the AFL draft process was like for you?
Yeah, a little bit different to today, Max. I was a father-son selection, but if we go back before that, I played all of my junior football in the Devonport area. Obviously, I played school football for St Brendan Shaw College, which is in Devonport. Then I played under-17 football at the East Devonport Football Club. Then I moved across the river to the Devonport Football Club, which was in the statewide league. East Devonport were in the Northwest League. So I moved to Devonport because that was going to give me the better opportunity to move into the AFL. And then I was picked up by Richmond under the father and son rule in 1992. I wasn't actually a selection in the draft. It was actually a pre-draft signing, a father-son signing. They actually changed the rule the next year and you actually became one of the draft selections. But I actually signed up with Richmond before that draft. I was already living in Melbourne before the draft took place. So I felt like it gave me a little bit of a head start on everyone else. I was settled in and I was ready to go.
What was it like as a kid growing up with your dad? And how do you think that's impacted you as a footballer and a person growing up with, an ex-AFL player?
Look, I didn't feel any pressure, Max. My father wasn't someone that put a lot of pressure on me. He encouraged me to play football, but he encouraged me to play, a lot of other sports as well. And I never felt any pressure to follow in his footsteps, which is a good thing because, I guess a lot of father-son selections do feel that way. But I think probably being out of Victoria, living in Tasmania, that probably helped. The media landscape, probably not, not as much scrutiny down there. So I was able to just develop without having any pressure put on me. And then when I arrived at Richmond, if anything, being a father and son at Richmond, I think it helped me settle in better. I rolled up at the club day one, Max, and, there were trainers that were still there from Dad's day back in the 1960s. And a lot of people associated with the club were still around that knew Dad. So they made me feel so welcome. So if anything, it wasn't a burden for me. It actually helped me.
How did you go settling in at the Tigers in that first preseason for you?
Yeah, I was pretty quiet. I didn't say too much, Max. It was the old school philosophy of, put your head down and you bum up, as they say. And I just, soaked it all in. I pretty quickly learned who the best trainers are. And if I could give any young kids a bit of advice, Max, is you follow the best trainers. And I worked out pretty quickly that guys like Craig Lambert and Matthew Knights and Wayne Campbell, they trained, to an elite standard. And I thought, wow, this is what I've got to do. If I want to play footy at the highest level, I've got to be able to do what these guys do. So yeah, I tacked onto the back of them and tried my hardest and I think I worked pretty hard in my first pre-season and got pretty fit. And luckily enough, I played pretty early in the next year.
Can you elaborate on your AFL debut?
Yeah, 1993, round 7 against the St Kilda Football Club at the MCG. I ended up playing on a guy called Danny Frawley that day.
Yep, Spud.
Spud. You'd know Spud well, Max.
Of course. I'm a Saints fan, mate.
You're Saints man.
Yeah, Saints man.
Well, you know Spud. Spud's an absolute legend of the St Kilda Footy Club, and rest his soul. We miss Spud dearly. Yeah, but I played on Spud that day. We had a pretty bad year, the Tigers. We only won 4 games that year, Max. So, but we won that day against your team.
Yeah.
I thought I played okay. I think I had 19 touches and I managed to kick a goal. And on that day, a teammate of mine, Duncan Kellaway, made his debut as well. So it was nice to debut with another young player and sing the song at the end of the game. I think, we only won another 2 or 3 games that year. So it was a pretty lean year.
Well, I don't think any debutants are going to get 19 touches at a goal in their first game, don't you reckon?
Quite a bit of wobble about me, Max. After the game. I was pretty happy with myself afterwards. It was nice to get a few kicks, and I managed to hold my place in the team for the rest of the year. And I thought that for a debut season, looking back now, it was probably a pretty good debut season.
So how do you look back? At Richmond, you mentioned winning sort of only a handful of games or less than a handful of games in that 1993 season. And then you look to them now where they've won 3 premierships in the space of 4 years, I think every second year.
Yeah.
What's that like for you to watch the evolution of Richmond?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I mean, I grew up a Richmond supporter, obviously. So I went through all of those lean years like the Richmond Army, the Tiger Army did. So even when I was playing, look, we weren't hopeless. We finished, we had a couple of years where we finished down the bottom, but more often than not, we were mid-table. I think we finished 9th 5 or 6 times in my career, So you look at it now, you finish 9th. That means you're winning at least 50% of your games, right?
Yeah.
You look at American sport, if you go above 500, they call it in American sport, you've actually had a winning season. And that in America, they say that's a good season. Whereas I think here, if you don't win the grand final, you don't get a lot of credit, any teams sort of after that. So, look, we had some good years, but we couldn't quite get it done. We played 2 prelim finals in my time, 95 and 2001. But never could quite get it done. So I guess, in my own mind, I probably thought, geez, I don't think Richmond are ever going to win a grand final. I'd given up on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So when it happened out of the blue in 2017, it was fantastic. And I've enjoyed watching these guys play.
I think you suffered an ACL injury a few seasons later. Can you take me through that?
Yeah, I did. I had an ACL injury round 9 in 1995 up at the Sydney Cricket Ground. That was really disappointing because we had a really good start to the year that year. Going into that game in round 9, we'd only lost 1 game. We were sitting in the top 2 on the ladder. We had a young team. We had an exciting team. We had a coach that really encouraged, us to take the game on. And he made you feel good about yourself, John Northey, who was our coach. And I think a lot of the modern coaches now, that's what they do. They coach to your strengths. They make you feel good. They don't beat you down, which is probably in my early years, a lot of coaching was about, really hard taskmasters and they'd knock you down. So John built you up, made you feel good. We were young. So to do my knee that year was disappointing. But at the same time, Max, I was only 20. And I just thought, we're going to play finals next year, the year after that. As you know, mate, it doesn't happen, just because you play finals one year doesn't mean you will the next. And so I missed out on the finals that year and we didn't play finals again until 2001.
Now, 1996, I think it was, you kicked 91 goals in that season. What did that mean to you to come back and kick 91 goals after an ACL injury?
Look, I didn't think a lot about it at the time, Max. When you're young, you just go about your business and you don't really think about sort of the impact that it can have. But I guess now in hindsight and having a bit more wisdom and having watched a lot of football and watched a lot of guys come back from knee injuries, it's not easy. So, I guess now looking back at it, I feel pretty proud that I was able to come back. After doing it in round 9, I played every game the next year and was able to have a pretty good year. So I guess you got to give a lot of credit to the fitness and medical staff around the Richmond Footy Club at the time. They put me through a pretty stringent rehab program. And there was a lot of hard yards put in. So to be able to play well the next year, it says a lot about the program that they had.
I think it was 2004. You stepped down from the leadership group at Richmond. How did you make that decision?
Oh, look, I guess I was turning 30 at the time, Max. Look, I felt like the way I trained and prepared myself, I was going to be a leader anyway. And turning 30 with some other younger, guys coming into that leadership group, I thought it was their turn. I probably thought at the time I was too old to sort of take over, the captaincy position at that age. And I think I just needed to focus on what I was doing out on the ground. In saying that, I still thought I was a leader anyway. So I don't think it really mattered too much whether I was an official leader.
Yeah. Then kicking a career best 10 goals in a game against the Western Bulldogs in that 2004 season. How did that game play out?
Yeah, look, it's just one of those days, I guess. I mean, you speak to footballers, you play a lot of footy, you're going to have a day every now and then when everything seems to go right for you. And I guess that day was one of those for me. Our midfield was able to, find a little bit of space. There was a bit of space inside forward 50. It was before we had team. Well, it wasn't before flooding, but it wasn't like it is now. You didn't have the numbers back that you do now. I mean, the forwards now have to contend with that zoning defence, and the intercept defence is so well drilled now, which it probably wasn't that good back in 2004. So you had really good leading lanes to come up into. I was one out at times inside 50. So if you're any good and you're one out, you should be able to kick a few goals. And it was just one of those days for me.
In 2007, I've read that at the Dreamtime at the G game, you played with a fractured eye socket and a broken nose, then kicking 4 goals still with those injuries. What was, playing in, a fantastic game with an injury like?
Yeah, it was an interesting week. I did have a small crack in my eye socket, but when you say it like you just did, a fractured eye socket, it sounds bad, doesn't it?
Sounds a bit worse, yeah.
It sounds a bit worse than it really was, mate. And you read it in the paper, and there's a bit of mayonnaise put on it. Look, I did have a small crack in my eye socket. I did have a large cut above my eye, but I was good to go. I mean, there was no. Probably now I probably wouldn't have played, because if you get a hit in the head like that now,
you're done.
We know that, you've got to have a week off. But I didn't really have any concussion symptoms after the week before. In fact, I didn't have any. I did have a cut and a little crack, but I felt good. I didn't feel like it was going to inhibit me. Obviously, we've tightened up on that a little bit now. But yeah, I was good to go. There was no reason why I couldn't play that game.
So how do you think with like concussion injuries and things like that from someone like, say, Paddy McCartan, who, he's come back from concussion injuries so many times, and in preseason and first game back, I think it's happened 3 or maybe 5 times to him. He's just got knocked straight to the head. How do you think that's impacted the current game now, and how, I guess, clubs and the AFL view the perspective of a concussion?
Yeah, very good question, Max. And I think we've learned a lot over the last 10 to 12 years with concussions, and we've seen what happened with the NFL. There was some real tragedies over there in American football. Obviously, their game, has a lot of concussions, and that they've had some, big lawsuits that have come from that with players. And I guess the medical technology has improved so much with the imagery they can do now of your brain, and they can see the damage that's been done. So we've learned a lot. I think we now know that if you hit someone in the head, whether it's an accident or it's not, it's just, we can't put up with it in the game. The head's got to be protected. We know that now. We know the damage it can do. And in hindsight, it's easy to say that at times. I feel for some of the past players, we just didn't have the know-how to probably pick up these symptoms that we now can. So I think the game is a lot cleaner now. I think it's been cleaned up. We know you can't go near the head. So I think hopefully in the future, we're not going to have issues with any players having long-term effects from concussion like perhaps players did in the past.
Now, winning your first club best and fairest, how did it feel to be recognised after the work in the season you put in behind the scenes and on field?
Look, you don't play football for individual
Yeah,
awards.
right,
You play to win premierships, obviously, but look, it is nice at the end of the day if you have a good season. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy to win. The Jack Dyer medal. The name Jack Dyer is synonymous with Richmond. He's probably the biggest legend in the club's history, along with Kevin Bartlett and probably Dustin Martin. Now they're probably on the podium if you look at Tiger legends. So to win a Jack Dyer medal was nice.
And moving positions in 2008 to the wing, how did you find adjusting to a different sort of position, and do you think that allowed you to contribute or play a greater part in the game?
Look, at the time, I didn't really know how it was going to go. I mean, I was 34 at the time. I was slowing down. I didn't have the leg speed that I may have had in the past. So when I got asked to play up there by Terry Wallace, I was a bit hesitant. I thought, gee, this could be the end of me, actually. I mean, he wants me out of the forward line. If I don't get a kick on the wing, what do I do next, Max? So, look, I was lucky enough that it worked out. And what I did find was going up onto the wing, I had a little bit more freedom. Your opponent probably doesn't play on you as closely as they do when you're playing as a forward. So I had a bit of freedom. And it went well. And that was basically my last year. I only played 5 games the next year and injured my hamstring, and that was the end of it. So it was a memorable time, I guess.
Well, in round 6, 2009, I want to touch on this sort of briefly. You at the SCG where you did your ACL, I think it was, you kicked your 800th goal. What were those moments like?
Yeah, look, that was my last game. So I did go into that game. I had hamstring tendonitis. I was really struggling. Looking back now, I probably shouldn't have played. I probably should have had some time off and tried to get it right. But I think in the back of my mind, I knew I was done. I knew my body was starting to fail me. I just couldn't do what I wanted to. And I went out there, and in the first sort of 5 minutes of the game, I came out on a lead. I was playing on Lewis Roberts Thompson, and I felt my hammy go. I felt it was like bang. I'm in trouble here. And the runner came out, and I sort of didn't want to admit that I was gone. I sort of limped back to the goal square, and I said to the runner, I'm okay. The ball kept coming in, and I just couldn't move. So Lewis Roberts Thompson got a couple of kicks, and the message came out, come on, mate, you got to do something, or you got to come off. I said, all right. But I knew I was on 799 goals, Max. So I thought, I need one more goal here, because I think I knew I think I knew I was done. I think I knew I was going to need surgery. And luckily enough, a fluky ball came my way. It got turned over in the middle of the ground. I was out on my own, and I was able to kick a goal somehow. And I came off the ground. I did come back on after half time, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. And then I needed surgery, and that was it. I didn't play again. So, it's nice to finish with 800 goals, I guess.
Then how did you make that decision to retire after surgery, or did you think there was any possibility that you could come back?
I wanted to come back. I did initially. I actually got through to round 20 that year. I played a game for Coburg, actually, out at Coburg Oval. And I hurt my hammy a bit again in the first 10 minutes. So I had to go and see the surgeon, and he said, look, you're probably going to need surgery again. We can see how you go. Damien Hardwick then took over the job at the end of the season. He gave me the opportunity to go on, but needing more surgery, I probably wouldn't have played till, midway through 2010.
Wow.
And I just thought, look, you're coming in, Damien. You're obviously going to bring in some young players. They'd already delisted, not delisted, but Joel Bowden had finished up. Kane Johnson had finished up. Nathan Brown had finished up. These were all guys around my age. So it just seemed like the timing was right with a new coach and some young players coming in.
So then how did you make the move, I guess, to the media side of the sport?
Yeah, probably a little bit lucky, I guess. I guess that injury in round 5 of 2009 helped me in the end, because I needed to think about the future. And I spoke to my manager, and he said, look, you're going to be out for most of the year now. Why don't we see if we can get you a little bit of media work? Like the guys do now on 360, like Jack Rewalt and guys like this. So I did a few little media things. There was a show on Channel 10 called 1 Week at a Time with Robert Walls and Stephen Quartermain. I did that a little bit. I did some special comments on 3AW. I enjoyed it. And I guess when I retired, I just hoped the phone would ring. And lucky enough, it did. I got lucky.
Yeah. So how have you found your time in the media so far?
Oh, you're like a fish out of water when you first start, Max. Not like you. I mean, you can step straight in now, mate. You're fine. Yeah, look, you just learn as you go, Max. You get thrown in the deep end a little bit. The camera comes on and, you just got to see how you go. So, yeah, I mean, I think I struggled a little bit early days. You get the flow of it as you go. And luckily, my employers supported me through those first few years. No, I was working with some experienced heads, working with you. You would love these guys, Max. I can tell that you're someone who wants to be a broadcaster. So Dennis Cometti, Bruce McAvaney. I was very lucky to work with those guys, and I was able to learn a little bit from them, I guess.
Can you sort of take me and guide me through your experience covering the 2017 AFL Grand Final? And I think you presented the Premiership Trophy to Trent Cotchin and Damien Hardwick too.
Yes, I did. I was very lucky. I was working that day for Channel 7 on the boundary line. I guess going into the game, Adelaide were favourites. The Adelaide Crows were favourites. So, look, my expectations weren't that we were going to win. I thought we've just got here, which was fantastic. We'd had a great run. If we won, I was hoping we'd win, but I actually thought the Crows were probably going to be the better team. But as the game wore on, you could just see Richmond's momentum that they'd built up over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the year and winning the first 2 finals. You could just see that by about halfway through the last quarter, you knew they were going to win. And then Dan Butler kicked a goal with 6 minutes to go to put them 7 goals up. And I thought, even Lee Matthews says a goal a minute. I thought, well, they can't. And then 7 goals in 6 minutes. So that was when I sort of got a bit emotional, and to be able to present the cup was a moment I'll never forget.
Now this is from the rumour files. We've done this with AFL legend Tony Shaw too. I heard you like the music. Was there ever, I guess, an opportunity for that career to take off if football didn't work out?
No, absolutely not, Max. I can't sing. I definitely can't dance. But I guess when you're playing sport, you need an escape. You need something else to enjoy. So that was music for me. After a game, if there was a good show on, I'd love to go to a show and catch up with some friends and watch some music. And that was the one time of the week where you could switch off and not think about football. So yeah, that was a passion of mine. I still love it now. I love getting to gigs. We haven't been able to go to many, obviously, in the last few years. But there's a few coming up now in the new year, which I'm looking forward to going to. But no, I can't sing and I cannot dance.
Can't sing?
No, hopeless.
No. How do you think the Tigers will go in this next 2022 season?
You're always optimistic this time of year. Everyone's flying. All of your draft picks are going to be 300-game players at this stage. I'm optimistic. They've still got, all their champions there. Yeah, they're getting a little bit older. But, after 4 years of being in the top 4, I think a few injuries took their toll last year. If they can get their important players fit again, like being on Prestia, if Cotchin can, have a solid year without being injured again. Shane Edwards was injured a lot. And you get a bit of improvement from some of these younger guys like a Collier Dawkins, a Thompson Dow or a Martin, guys like that, a Sydney Stack.
Yeah.
We saw Morris Rioli Jr. for a couple of games last year. If one of these guys really bobs up, or one or two of them bob up, and your veterans play well, I think Tom Lynch had some injuries last year. So I think if they can get everyone out on the ground, I think they're a good chance to play finals again.
What about Melbourne? Do you think they can back up that grand final premiership experience?
Yeah, look, if you look at Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs, I mean, their list demographic, the age profile looks good. And they've got so many, superstar players in each team. So I'd be surprised if both of those teams aren't right there again.
Early preseason grand final premiers?
Oh, look, I just thought the way Melbourne dominated that last 40, 50 minutes of that grand final, if they're hungry and they, maintain the standard, they're going to be hard to beat.
So who do you think is the player to watch going into next season?
Player to watch. Oh, look, I'll go a little bit, probably even further left field than you think, because he hasn't played a lot of footy, but I love Harrison Jones at the Bombers. I think he's some of his marking that he took in games last year. He had games where he took 5 and 6 contested marks, and he's built like a bit of string at the moment, but he's 6'6" and he can jump and he can run, and I think he's confident in his own ability. So I'll keep an eye out for him.
What do you think of Nick Dacos going to Collingwood?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, being a Richmond man, you're not meant to like Collingwood, but I love Peter Dacos. Get on YouTube, all your young followers, and look at Peter Dacos. If he's anywhere near as good as his dad, Collingwood fans are going to be happy.
What would be your best advice to anyone who wants to be a successful footballer like yourself?
Look, I guess when you're young, take it seriously, but enjoy it. And I think as a young guy, you should play as many sports as you can, because I think if you play a lot of different sport, it really develops, all of your coordination. You get to experience different angles, different ways of playing, different tactics. And I think if you can play as much sport as you can when you're young, that's a good thing. When you get into your mid-teens, probably time to, knuckle into whatever you want it to be. And if it's football, that's a great thing. Look, I always thought you've got to enjoy yourself. Yeah, and you've got to work hard. Once you get to 15 or 16, you do need to make a few little sacrifices here or there, and just never have the footy out of your hands. Never have the footy out of your hands, and soak up as much knowledge as you can. Speak to older, retired players, and chew their ear off and get some advice from them.
I've got a little bit of yes or no now. Questions. Christian Petrarca, Brownlow medalist next year, yes or no?
I'll give you a yes on that. Why not?
Is the mode for you here to stay next year?
Well, it's meant to come off today, right?
Is it? November. Yes, it's November.
I'm just looking at the corner of my computer here. It says the 1st of December. It's meant to come off today.
Yeah.
But I've got attached to it. So I might hang it. Might keep it until Christmas time.
Might keep it until Christmas time. What do you think of Wanganeen Malera? Yes or no? Is he going to get a debut game this season for the Saints?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think teams love to throw young guys in. You used to have to play, a fair bit of footy in the twos before you got a chance. But I think coaches now and teams are, I think they're happy to throw young guys in and see how they go. So yeah, I'll say yes.
Brett Voss going to take, I think it's Brett, is it? At Carlton, going to take Carlton.
Michael Voss, sorry. Brett is his brother.
Yeah, Brett's his brother, yeah.
Brett's his brother, Max, yeah.
Is Michael going to take them to the top 8, yes or no?
Borderline. You know what? I'll say yes. I think they've got good key position talent. Losing Liam Jones is a big out, though.
Yeah. One last yes or no question. Tigers top 4?
Well, yes.
Yes, all right. Thanks, Richard, for coming on the podcast today and putting aside half an hour or so of your time to come and have a chat. It's been an absolute honour.
No, well done, Max. And some really good questions, mate. And congratulations on what you're doing with your pod.
Thanks, Richard. Greatly appreciated.
Cheers, mate.
Stay tuned, everyone, for some more Sporting Max.